President Bongbong Marcos says he is thinking very hard about filing economic sabotage charges against those who are discovered to have committed fraud in the country's flood control projects. Marcos on Wednesday, August 20, inspected the supposed site of a reinforced concrete river wall project in Barangay Piel, Baliwag, Bulacan, which was scheduled to begin last February. However, not a single wall has been built to this day. According to Marcos, the project is a 220-meter river wall that cost the government 55.7 million pesos. It was awarded to Sims Construction Trading. When asked about the end goal of the Commission on Audit's fraud audit into Bulacan's flood control projects, Marcos says filing cases against the people involved is being considered.
As I said, ang trato namin with all of this is, siyempre marami. For example, falsification na ito. Yung ganito, dahil nag-report sila na completed. Hindi, kitang-kita naman na hindi completed. So immediately, that's a falsification. So that's already a very big violation. And for the big ones, talagang I'm thinking very hard to pipilahan natin sila na economic sabotage.
Marcos also describes the non-existent river wall project in Barangay Piel as a perfect example of abuse.
And this is a perfect example of the abuse that is being done by some of these contractors. And this is not, unfortunately, hindi lang ito na project na ganito. Kailangan pa natin tignan na mabuti lahat ng mga iba. At nakakalungkot, pero ang dami pang iba na sa amin palagay ganito rin, na ganitong kalaki na project.
Visibly annoyed, the president knows that he was beyond merely disappointed with this newly discovered anomalous flood prevention project.
Well, more than disappointed, I'm actually I'm getting very angry. This is what's happening. Then paano naman wala talaga 220 meters, 55 billion completed ang record ng public works. Kahit walang ginawa, kahit isang araw hindi nagtrabaho, wala. Wala kang makita, puntahan ninyo, wala kayong makita kahit na ano. Tuloy-tuloy ang pagbaha doon sa kabila.
Marcos says many problems could have been avoided if the projects were properly executed and implemented. INQUIRER.net has reached out to Sims Construction Trading for comment. International Criminal Court prosecutor Karim Khan argues that there are no grounds for him to be disqualified from the case of former President Rodrigo Duterte. In a 13-page filing dated August 18, Khan notifies the court's pretrial Chamber 1 that he has carefully considered whether the circumstances give rise to any grounds for disqualification. Khan says he does not consider that any grounds for disqualification currently exist. In the filing, Khan says the prosecutor is presumed to be impartial after taking the public oath of office. He says that disqualifying the prosecutor requires a powerful reason to maintain sound administration of justice. He emphasizes that he is not aware of any prior case in which his impartiality has been challenged. This is based on a prior involvement in an earlier stage of proceedings on behalf of one or more victims or a group representing the interests of victims. Citing similar cases, Khan says his previous involvement in the Philippine situation was not in a role where his impartiality could be doubted. To further back his argument, Khan says international tribunals have also appointed prosecutors who had involvement in prior investigative proceedings. He stresses there is no conflict of interest requiring him to excuse himself from Duterte's case. Nonetheless, the submission states that the prosecutor will keep his position under review as matters progress and will provide further submissions or take further steps should the chamber deem it necessary. Unless the chamber says otherwise, Khan says he intends to continue leading the prosecution of Duterte's case. Earlier, Duterte's defense team said Khan failed to disclose a grievous conflict of interest, asking him to be disqualified from any further role in the case against the former president. Duterte's counsel Nicholas Kaufman particularly said Khan, in his capacity as a private lawyer for hire in 2018, represented victims of an alleged policy of extrajudicial drug-related killings in the Philippines. In May, Khan temporarily stepped aside from his post as the United Nations investigated sexual misconduct he allegedly committed. Vice President Sara Duterte is asking the Supreme Court not to overturn its July 25 decision that voided the impeachment complaint against her. Through her defense lawyers, Duterte warns that having the Supreme Court reverse itself will only allow whoever is in power to disregard constitutional restraints in the impeachment process and find a loophole to be used against political enemies. In a 27-page comment, Duterte's legal team says the High Tribunal's ruling requires no factual correction, contrary to the assertion of the House of Representatives. The Duterte defense team sought to attack the House's three main arguments. The first is that the Supreme Court misconstrued the chronology of events since the archiving of the first 3 impeachment complaints came before the filing of the 4th. Second, it erred in saying that the 4th complaint was transmitted to the Senate without a plenary vote. And third, that it wrongly ruled that the prior complaints were effectively dismissed due to Congress's adjournment. Duterte's team assails the motion for reconsideration for being based on what they describe as mere diversions obsessed with trivia and blind to the Supreme Court decision's genuine core reasoning. Duterte's team says the wafer-thin proximity between the archiving of the first 3 complaints and the filing of the 4th complaint on February 5 undermined the House's claim that the sequence of events had a meaningful bearing on the Supreme Court's ruling. They argue that the House exploited the definition of the word initiation in the Lambert cases of Francisco versus House and Gutierrez versus House to circumvent the 1-year bar rule on filing impeachment complaints. The defense also believes the House motion for reconsideration should be dismissed because it lacked plenary approval from the chamber under the 20th Congress. They say it was never submitted for plenary deliberation or voting as shown in the official orders of business published on the House website between July 25 and August 4, when the motion was filed by the Office of the Solicitor General. They further question whether the Office of the Solicitor General acted unilaterally or at the behest of House Speaker Martin Romualdez, who had publicly commented on the filing. By bypassing the plenary, they believe the filing of the motion was not only procedurally defective, but also an unauthorized incursion upon the institution of prerogatives at the 20th Congress.